In some circuits, it's not possible to simply find the current and voltage by looking at the circuit and looking at the series and parallel combinations of resistors. So you might be able to do it over here, but not over here. So in that case, then do you struggle hard to write the correct equations without messing up the algebraic signs using Kirchhoff's rules? If you do, then maybe this lesson will help you understand the rules better so that you can write the equations correctly and solve the circuits in one go. Under Kirchhoff's rules, we have two rules, and the first rule is the junction rule. Now, the junction rule states that the sum of the currents entering any junction must be equal to the sum of the currents leaving the junction. First of all, what is a junction? See, a junction is a point at which you have three or more conductors meeting. So we would call this a junction. We wouldn't call this a junction. So this is not a junction, but this is an example of a junction. This could be a junction. This is again a junction. So the sum of the currents which enter the junction is equal to the sum of the currents that leave the junction. See, I'll just draw this junction over here. This is a point at which three or more conductors are meeting, and you have some currents which are flowing inwards and some currents which are flowing outwards, which is out of the junction, and these currents are flowing into the junction. Now, whatever current flows into the junction, that same current has to leave the junction. If that doesn't happen, there will be an accumulation of charge at this point. But there is no such accumulation of charge. There is no such accumulation of charge at any point in the circuit, which means all the current which enters into a junction must leave the junction. This is like, say, you have a number of water pipes which are connected, say, at some junction, and water flows in through some of the pipes and it leaves through some other pipes. Say water flows in through these and water leaves through these pipes. Now, the water which flows in per unit time has to be equal to the water which flows out per unit time, because if that doesn't happen, there will be an accumulation of water at this point, and this rule is based on the conservation of charge. Now, applying the first rule or the junction rule, and let's say the currents, these are I1, I2, I3 and I4. So applying the first rule at this point, we can say that I1 plus I2 equals I3 plus I4. So the incoming currents is equal to the outgoing currents. Now let's just take a look at a circuit over here, and let's just assume that, say, a current I flows in over here at the junction A, and let's say I1 and I2 leave the junction. Now at this point we would write that I equals I1 plus I2. I is the current coming into the junction and I1 plus I2 is the current leaving the junction. So the current coming into the junction is equal to the current that leaves the junction. Let's just take another instance. Say we have this point B, junction B, and we have I1 coming in at this point. So this current is I1, and let's say a current flows in this direction, and let's call that I3, and we'll call the current which goes over here as, say, I4. Now you can see that the current which comes into junction B is I1, and the current that leaves junction B is I3 plus I4. So I1 is equal to I3 plus I4. Now this is very useful when you want to eliminate variables. So if I have used 5 variables, I need 5 equations to solve it. So then the first rule comes in handy in expressing one variable in terms of the other. So I could write I4 as I1 minus I3. So I would just write this as I1 minus I3. So now I have reduced one variable, which means instead of 5 equations, now I need 4 equations to solve the unknown currents. Now the next rule is the loop rule, and the loop rule states that the algebraic sum of the changes in potential encountered in a complete traversal of any loop of a circuit must be 0. See, this whole statement just sounds difficult and complicated, but actually it isn't. It's like saying, suppose you have an object placed at this point, you lift it to a height, lift it a little further, you bring it down, and then again back to its original position. So, in the complete process, what is the change in height for this object? The change in height is 0. The change in potential is 0. Similarly, if you start from any point of this closed loop, let's say I start from here, I move from A to B to D to C and back to A. Now A, B, D, C, A is a closed loop. Now if I am back at the same position, then the change in potential is 0. An example of a closed loop could be loop A, B, C, A. It could be A, B, C, A, or let's say it could be D, B, C, D. It could be D, B, C, D. See, just notice the starting and the final alphabet has to be the same, because you have to be back at the same point from which you started, since the difference in potential has to be 0. Now, I could have traversed a loop as A, B, D, and let's say we have a point E over here. So you have A, B, D, E, and again back to A. A, B, D, E, and back to A. So all these are examples of closed loops. Now the condition is that the loop has to be closed. Closed means that the starting and the final point have to be the same. For instance, if you go from A to B to D, which means A, B, D, now this is not closed, because you start at point A and then you finish at point D. Now the potential at A and D are not necessarily the same. But if I start at A and come back to A itself, the potential difference between the final and the initial point has to be 0. We'll just take a look at this term, the algebraic. Don't bother about this. So the sum of the changes in potential encountered in a complete traversal of any loop must be 0. Now, while applying the loop rule, it's a little tricky because you have to get the signs correct. So the signs that you have to use is, if you move through a resistance in the direction of current, then you put a negative sign because you're moving to a point of lower potential. It's like saying that water will automatically flow from a higher position to a lower position. Similarly, current will flow from a higher potential to a lower potential. So if you're moving in the direction in which water is flowing or in which current is flowing, that means you're going towards a point of lower potential. So you need to put a negative sign. If you're traversing the loop in a direction opposite to the direction in which current is flowing, it's like saying that water is flowing in this direction, water will normally flow in this direction, and you are moving in an upward direction, which means you're going towards a point which is at a higher level or at a higher potential. And in that case, you need to put a positive sign with the change in potential when you traverse this resistance. If you're moving through an EMF device, and let's say you're moving from a negative to the positive terminal of this battery, as you traverse the loop, say you're traversing the loop in this direction, which means you're moving from the negative to the positive terminal of the battery. So you're moving from a lower level to a higher level because you're going towards a higher potential point. So in this case, the sign will again be positive. And if you're moving through an EMF device while traversing the loop, if you're moving from the positive to the negative potential, that means from a higher to a lower level, in that case you need to use a negative sign. So you just need a little bit of practice to be able to apply algebraic signs correctly.